I remember my first experience playing a true local multiplayer video game. It was Super Smash Bros. For the N64. As you can imagine, I was complete garbage at the game. I mean, most 6 and 7 year olds were. My friends and I had an older friend, he must have been in middle school at the time, who we just saw as this god of video games. Let's call him Luke for the sake of this story. That's not his real name, but I want to keep everybody anonymous. Whenever we played free-for-all in Smash, everyone knew that Luke was going to win. You're better off avoiding him and trying to play for second, third, or fourth. We would kiss his butt in order to be on his team, which basically just meant that he would attack everyone else first and then go for you last, basically guaranteeing you second place. Those days of playing Super Smash Bros. On my friend's couch were amazing. We would always play on his old CRTV, which just made games look majestic back in the day. Now, Super Smash Bros. May have been my earliest memory of multiplayer, but we did play all kinds of multiplayer games on the N64. Everything from Mario Kart 64 to Star Fox 64. Mario Kart 64's battle mode was particularly memorable due to how chaotic it was. There's nothing like running away from your friend's red shell as it tries to hunt you down and smash your little cart. When the GameCube came out, this was a game changer for multiplayer. Although the N64 is special to me, being my first experience in multiplayer, the GameCube is probably what I'm most nostalgic for since I was older and could actually play somewhat competently. And I put in way more time into that thing. I was again obsessed with Super Smash Bros. Melee this time. I remember my friend and I would create custom game modes with crazy scenarios like having 99 lives and only using Pokeballs. Another game we played a lot of multiplayer on was 007 Nightfire. That game's split screen was great because you could add 6 additional bots to the game and you and your friends could be all on the same team playing against these computer players with what seemed like laser vision accurate shooting abilities. Again, we would add all kinds of fun gimmicks like only playing with grenades or missile launchers, or everyone would always spawn near each other, making it insanely chaotic, or the classic snipers only match. Anyway, there's a theme here. There was just a simplicity about multiplayer back in the day. We were just there to have fun and do stupid things. Multiplayer was just different back in the day. It was simple, fun, and dare I say, better. But here's the thing. Retro handhelds can make really good miniature home consoles, depending on which one you buy. In a previous video, I talked about how you could turn your Retroid Pocket 3 Plus into a home console. All you do is connect your controllers to it, connect it to a TV, and game with your friends. Sometimes you would also connect a Bluetooth speaker to it, and the reason why you would do this is because some TVs, for whatever reason, don't get sound output from the Retroid Pocket 3 Plus. And it depends on the TV. I think it has something to do with the model of the TV and how new it is. For example, my living room TV, no sound at all. The smaller TV that I use in my bedroom has sound. So whenever I use a TV that doesn't produce sound from the Retro Pocket 3 Plus, I just use a speaker like my JBL speaker. Anyway, the right retro handheld makes a great little home console to play couch, split screen multiplayer with your friends. Now you could do this with original hardware, but with original hardware, you don't have the convenience of being able to use wireless controllers connected via Bluetooth and also stuff like, having to switch your games. And honestly, you can get better resolution sometimes by using a retro handheld. The Retroid Pocket 3 Plus is a great option to do all of this. But you know what's even better? The Retroid Pocket 4 Pro. Now why is that? Well, for starters, it's more powerful, so better emulation. You can emulate more GameCube and PS2 games, and we all know that GameCube and PS2 has a lot of great multiplayer games. And there's another big reason why the Retroid Pocket 4 Pro is a better option to use as a retro home console. And we'll get into that later in this video. So, without further ado, let's get into the meat of this video about how to consoleize your Retroid Pocket 4 Pro so that you can relive those glory days of couch split-screen multiplayer. Now, to turn your Retroid Pocket 4 Pro into a little home retro gaming console, you'll need to connect it to a TV, obviously. And if you've purchased this device or you're thinking about purchasing it, you're probably aware of this little micro HDMI out port. Now, this is not a mini HDMI out. Don't get it confused. A device like the RGB30 here uses a mini HDMI out, which is a little bit bigger than the micro. These use different cables. Don't be a dummy and buy the wrong cable, which is totally not something that I did. But I did. And I learned my lesson. You can buy your micro HDMI out, plug your Retroid Pocket 4 Pro to a TV, and boom, your device will pop up on the big screen in 720p. However, did you know that this is not the only way to plug your Retroid Pocket 4 Pro to a TV? Because it's not. In fact, if you have a USB-C to HDMI converter of sorts, like this one here, you can plug your Retroid Pocket 4 Pro into your HDMI TV via the USB-C port. Kind of like a Nintendo Switch. I'll be honest, when I purchased my Retroid Pocket 4 Pro, I had no clue that you can connect to a TV this way. And you may be thinking, well, what's the point? Well, there's a huge benefit in doing this. Plugging your Retroid Pocket 4 Pro into your TV by the USB-C method gives you a 1080p resolution as opposed to a 720p resolution you get from the micro HDMI out. Also, if your USB-C has a charging USB-C port on it, like this one has, you can even charge your Retroid Pocket 4 Pro while playing it on a TV. This is super cool because it basically opens up the possibility of having a Nintendo Switch-like dock for your Retroid Pocket 4 Pro. Although one interesting issue I discovered is that if you have the dock plugged into the HDMI and the power at the same time, and then you plug it into your Retroid Pocket 4 Pro, it doesn't connect to the TV. You have to plug it in with the HDMI only first, and then plug in the power after. So this might make it a little complicated to have an actual Switch-like dock. Anyway, if you want to turn your Retroid Pocket 4 Pro into a home mini console, forget the micro HDMI out and get one of these USB-C docks. I got this one specifically from Anker. I like Anker products. There are cheaper ones out there, but I'd rather have a little bit better quality and spend a few more bucks. I'll make sure to link to this one in the description. Also, I should mention that this apparently only works with the Pro model and not the base Retroid Pocket 4. So this is not something that I tested out personally, but this is what the internet says. Alright, so let's get in how to set multiplayer up on the Retroid Pocket 4 Pro. We're going to go over RetroArch, Dolphin, and the Aether/Nether SX2 emulators. This pretty much covers every console from the old school NES all the way up to the Wii. I'm not going to talk about other standalone emulators in this video, but honestly the process will be similar enough to where you can use the bits and pieces from my guide and figure it out. Okay, how to set up multiplayer on RetroArch. Here's the thing, this isn't a Nintendo Switch or a PS5. You can't simply turn it on, connect your controllers, and start playing. It's a little more complicated than that. But if you follow these steps every time you want to play multiplayer, you won't have a problem. Before we get into the actual multiplayer part, let's make sure that you know how to connect your controllers to your Retroid Pocket 4 Pro. You just connect them via Bluetooth, really easy, so put your controller into pairing mode. For an Xbox controller, that's going to be the Xbox button followed by the sync button, and then for a PS5 controller, that's going to be the PS5 button followed by the share button. If you have a different controller, just Google how to put it into pairing mode. Once it's in pairing mode, you can discover it on your Retroid Pocket 4 Pro, and then it's connected. Alright, so select RetroArch with your first controller, player 1, navigate to the input and hit RetroPad binds. Then port 1 controls. Under device index, you'll see that it already has your controller selected. This is because you opened RetroArch with that controller. If you open RetroArch with the console, just hit any button on your controller and it'll appear under these device index. Anyway, just make sure you select the right controller. Now you can bind the buttons how you like. I recommend keeping everything the same except for the main face buttons. Just set those to something that makes sense. For example, if I'm playing N64, I want the bottom button to be A and the left button to be B. This just makes sense given the N64 controller. For the second controller, go to port 2 controls, then press any button on your second controller. You'll see the next controller pop up under device index, and it should map everything to that controller. Again, change the face buttons how you'd like. And you do the same steps for the third and the fourth controllers. Now, when you quit RetroArch, everything you did will be erased and you'll have to re-input everything. Unless you go to the main menu, go to configuration file and click save configuration. Then whenever you want to play again with your friends, you just load that configuration and have each controller join by pressing any button on them. You'll notice that when each controller joins, it'll give you this little notification on the bottom of the screen. What order the controller joined doesn't matter, it'll give you the same configuration for each one. To keep things simple though, each controller should be configured the same way. And that's RetroArch multiplayer in a nutshell. That'll cover every single console pretty much up until N64, Dreamcast, and PS1. Now there are a few other standalone emulators you're probably going to want to use. Let's get into that next. Setting up multiplayer on the Dolphin emulator is a little bit easier. First, you want to connect every controller you plan on playing with to your Retroid Pocket 4 Pro. Then, open up Dolphin, click on the settings gear icon, click on the GameCube input. You'll see 4 controller options here. First, click on each controller and select Standard Controller. Now, for each controller you play with, you'll want to click on this gear icon. In this example, we're going to do 2. Under Device, click on Controller you want for that controller port. Keep in mind that the Android-1-Xbox wireless controller is the console itself. In this example, you can see that the Android-2-Xbox is my Xbox controller, and the DualSense is obviously the PS5 controller. The more controllers you have connected to the device, the more options you'll see. You can just ignore all these other options that appear under it. For each controller, you'll want to map the buttons to what makes sense for a GameCube controller, but that's personal preference. Once you map it, it should remember every time you connect that controller to the device. Here, I'm going to controller number 2 to show you that I'm setting this up to use with my DualSense controller. And that's it. Click on each controller port, select the controller you want associated with it, then select the game you want to play, and you're ready for multiplayer. Easy peasy lemon squeezy. If you want to play PS2 multiplayer with a buddy, here's what you need to do. This is going to be through Aether/Nether SX2, and it's honestly probably the easiest one to set up out of all of them. First off, make sure both of your controllers are connected. Just click the settings menu, go to controller settings, go to port 1 controls. For controller type, hit DualShock 2, then hit automatic mapping and click on your controller from the menu. Again, your Retroid Pocket 4 Pro will pop up as an Xbox wireless controller, and unfortunately, it can't differentiate between that and your Xbox controller. You'll just have to guess, honestly. Then everything is automatically mapped to the correct bindings, and honestly, I don't even think you need to change any of them, although you can manually bind them if you'd like. Then go to controller port 2 and do the same thing for your second controller. And that's it. Start playing with your friend, or your spouse, or your dog. You know, the Retroid Pocket 4 Pro consoleizes very well, and in my opinion, the split-screen multiplayer on this device is great. Sure, the setup process is not seamless, it never will be with emulation, but I hope my explanation helps out. Ideally, you could just follow my steps and connect some controllers without any issues. I'll also put together a written guide on this topic as well, and link to it in the description when it's finished. This way, if you ever forget how to connect them, you could just, look at the steps again. I love how you can relive some of the multiplayer nostalgia that I was talking about in the beginning of this video, thanks to this device. I've played with my wife, who luckily enjoys video games to an extent. I've also played with my kids, my brother, and some of our other friends. Playing Kirby Air Ride with my kids was particularly amazing. It reminded me of what it was like to just enjoy games for the sake of games. They're perfectly happy just running around City Trial on the practice mode. This reminded me of the hours I spent just messing around in the game without necessarily caring about completing the checklist in the game as a kid. Although I did care about beating it, of course, there was just no rush in doing it. I feel like as an adult we get caught up in the competitiveness of multiplayer games, and there's a certain child innocence that's lost. This is getting kind of philosophical, I know, and maybe this is a topic for a whole nother video. Anyway, if you own a Retroid Pocket 4 Pro, you can very easily turn it into a home console, giving you the best of both worlds. Again, I really recommend you buy a USB-C dock like the Anker one I talked about earlier in this video. Hopefully one day I can get a standing dock that I can place next to my TV, and whenever I want a game on the Retroid Pocket 4 Pro on the TV, I can just slide it in and it starts playing on the TV. Exactly like a Nintendo Switch. Even if Retroid doesn't make one themselves, I'm sure there's other options out there. I'll let you know if I find one. Alright, that's it for this video. Let me know in the comments below if you own a Retroid Pocket 4 Pro or plan on getting one and you plan on playing split-screen multiplayer on it. Also, let me know what your favorite multiplayer games growing up were. I'm really curious, I love hearing the stories, and honestly, I read every single comment on my videos at this point. Well, that's it. Thanks a lot. Cheers. Thanks for watching.